Hello guys, today I'll be talking about quadratic equations. The general formula of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. This is the general formula, and where a, b and c are numbers. So how can we solve a quadratic equation? One of the ways is by factorizing. Here we have an example: x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So we have to factorize this part here. We have to factorize it to get two brackets or product equals to 0. So how do we do this? We find the numbers that we multiply to get 6 and we add to get -5. What I usually use is a table where I choose numbers and give the sum and the product of the numbers. So here 1, 6 would add to give 7, and when you multiply them you get 6, which is not what we want. And we can choose 2 and 3. When you add them you get 5, but and when you multiply you get 6. If we choose -2 and -3 this time, this would give us -5 as the sum and 6 as the product. So those are the two numbers. We just add them into the brackets. So here we have the factorized equation with the two brackets, and when you multiply two factors and get 0, one of them must be equal to 0. So x minus 2 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals to 0. And so we have the answer, the values of x as x equals 2 or x equals 3. When a is not equal to 1, so it's any other number, we have to factorize by grouping. And the way we do that is we find the numbers that multiply to give the product of 2 and 3. So in this case we need two numbers that multiply to give 6 and add to give 5. So for example here, -1 and 6 would add up to get 5, but when you multiply them you get -6, and when you use 2 and 3 they add up to give 5 and multiply to give 6, which is what we want. Now here we have to split up b. So b is the sum of those two numbers, so we can say that 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 3 equals to 0. And we group the 2x squared and 2x and the 3x plus and 3, and we factorize. So we look for the greatest common factor, which in this case is 2x and 3. So when we factorize them we get 2x plus 3 into x plus 1 equals to 0. And so if two numbers multiply to give 0, one of them should be equal to 0. 2x plus 3 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0, and the answers are x equals -3/2 and or x equals -1. Okay, so another way of solving quadratic equations is using the quadratic formula. So this is the easiest way. it's only a formula that you can apply anywhere. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So the variables here, a, b, and c, are the ones in the first equation we saw earlier. So we have an example here. X squared plus 7x plus 9 is equal to 0. So we can just plug in the values for a, b, and c. X equals negative 7 plus root 13 over 2, or x equals negative 7 minus root 13 over 2. And the last way to solve a quadratic equation is by using completing the square. So in completing the square, we want to achieve this x plus d squared equals to f, where d and f are numbers. So x plus d squared equals to f, so that we can square root both sides and solve this for x. This is one way of solving the quadratic. So here's an example. 2x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals to 0. What I usually do is I take the c to the other side of the equation. So here it becomes 2x squared minus 3x equals to 4, and a must be equal to 1 for completing the square, so we divide the whole equation by 2, giving us x squared minus 3 over 2x equals to 2. And now we add to both sides negative 3 over 4 squared, x minus 3 over 4 everything squared. So if we expand this bracket, we will get x squared minus 3 over 2x plus negative 3 over 2 squared. And we have ended up with the same setup as shown here x plus d squared equals f. We can, of course, square root both sides and solve for x, and we get the answer. Why did we add b over 2 squared to both sides? This is because if you have a complete square, which is x plus a number squared, the c would always be equal to b over 2 squared. So we want to get a complete square, and that's why we add b over 2 squared to both sides. And so we get an answer of x equals 3 plus root 41 over 4, and x equals 3 minus root 41 over 4.